Hello, Latin 2 class. We're going to start today by going over lesson 2, and we're going to work through the lesson part of this as well as go over some of the terms on page 13. Before we get started, let's actually kind of make a comment just back in between lesson 1 and lesson 2. There's a difference here between two different types of ablatives, and I want to take a minute to explain those. So the first that we see is the ablative of agent. So that's what is talked about in lesson 1, but it's contrasted with the ablative of means in lesson 2. And so it's important that we have both of those to compare to together. So let me just read for you the contrast between the two. So the ablative agent, the definition is that it's used with a person or sometimes a personified thing who performs an action upon the subject. It is always used with the preposition a or ab. So that's like by this person, and prepositions tend to be words that are like to or from or by or with, and so those terms that help show relation to the one doing the action. And the formula for that is like ab plus the ablative, which would be the person. So like if the sentence is the girl is praised by the teacher, it would be puella ab magistro laudator. And what that does is this puella ab magistro, the girl ab magistro. And ab magistro there is like it's in the ablative case, but it has the preposition with it, laudatur. And so then that's praised, so it's like perfect praised. Or not perfect, but it's ongoing, so that's imperfect, is praised by the teacher. And so then we have ablative of means. So if we have one, which is the action is being done like by a person in the passive voice, the verb is in the passive voice, then the ablative of means expresses the thing, like the instrument, the tool by which an action is performed. So the means in which it's performed. No preposition is used here. The verb can be in the active or the passive voice, meaning it could be saying that like it's being done by the thing, or it's done with the thing, or done to the thing. And the formula is that the ablative, the thing, plus the verb. And that would be like puer sagita leonam nakawit, which would be puer, boy, the boy, sagita leonam nakawit. So the boy, you probably picked up leonam there, lion, and nakawit, he killed. Okay, well, sagita means arrow. So sagita there is the ablative without a preposition, but it's like the ablative arrow. So like the boy, which is in the nominative case, showing the subject, and then the subject, of course, is doing the action. Who's receiving the action? Leonum, right? So that's the direct object. And then sagita is the arrow. So the boy, puer, nakawit, he killed. Leonum, sagita. So remember, it goes like usually, no, you don't have to do this, but usually it is subject first. And then you kind of work backwards from there, like the subject, and then you go to the ending. Like that's the verb he's using, nakawit, he killed. And then you can work your way back, like he killed the lion with the arrow. And that is the ablative. And last year we didn't use ablative a lot. Most of our conversation around ablative was just saying, like repeating, like, okay, it tells the means, it tells the means, it tells the means. But this is where we're getting into like what that actually is, because, you know, if I'm completing an action, you know, there's usually a way that that action is taking place, and so it really helps your phrases to be more descriptive if you are creating them, but also in reading them, it helps you understand what the actual setting is saying. And so again, quick comparison here: ablative of agent is like using a or ab plus the person, so it has a preposition plus the person doing the action, but only in passive verbs. And then the ablative of means is just the ablative of the thing without a preposition, and that's the main distinction. So if you don't see a preposition with something that has an ablative ending, that's the reason why. Just trying to cover into that. Yeah, I think that's good. So that is a quick review of ablative of agent on page 10. And then you guys did a lot of practice with the first and second form vocabularies, verbs. And so good job on that. I'm sure that that's probably done by now. And so you will have a little bit of additional work to go with today's study, but it's not quite as much. And so let's turn to page 12. We're working on page 12, lesson 2, Adi Israel. So, hear, O Israel, from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4, is our phrase today. Well, first and second form grammar review. We review the third and fourth conjugation verbs and their principal parts and meanings on the facing page. Say the principal parts of all verbs aloud and master them thoroughly. So, before we even go over there, let's read a little bit deeper, and then I'm going to re-explain to you these principal parts just in review, and then we'll read them together. The for that follows the entry form of a verb shows that it is the fourth conjugation verb with regular principal parts. Third conjugation verbs do not have regular principal parts and are always written out in full, excepting winko. The third conjugation verbs in second form form their third principal parts in X. Remember the X. The second principal part, the infinitive, shows the conjugation of the verb. The infinitive of all third conjugation verbs end in ere, and the infinitive of all fourth conjugation verbs end in ire, or ire. And let's see. In the Latin grammar appendix, we're not going to go into that today. We're just going to I'm going to try to cover some of the other things, like the exact same things it would say, but with the other terms we're going to study. The ablative without the means, you guys already see what I'm talking about there. That's why we reviewed that to begin with. So we've already gone over that now. The ablative without a preposition may be used to express the non-living agent. So living agent is ablative of the ablative of agent, and then the ablative of means is a non-living agent, meaning that the actor doing the action is not living. There are two kinds of direct questions. Questions introduced with question words, as shown on the facing page, and yes/no questions formed by adding the enclitic ne to the end of the first word of the question. That's actually going to be really fun, I think, reading, because you'll see that a lot. It's something that I've come across a lot in reading Latin, the ne ending. Like sunt ne, like, sunt, right? Like r, sunt ne, r, like a question, and so that's just an easy one to remember. We're going to learn some new Latin here. So let's look at this new vocabulary. Let's recite this together. Cedo, cedere, cesi, cesus, meaning to yield or give away. Claudo, claudere, clausi, clausus, meaning to close. Gero, gerere, gessi, gestus, meaning to wage or carry on. Mito, mitere, misi, missus, meaning to send. Pono, ponere, posui, positus, meaning to put, place. Premo, premere, presi, pressus, meaning to press or push. Scribo, scribere, scripsi, scriptus, meaning to write. So the third conjugation of verbs above form their third principal part in S. Saying them aloud until you've mastered them will help that, so make sure you practice that at home. So notice that their third principal part ends in S. And let's pay attention on this page 13 to walk through the principal parts. So notice you have our first person singular. You have the infinitive next to that. We have next to that our past action and then our past participle. So audio. Then we have capio, capere, capi, captus. Cupio, cupere, copivi, cupitus. Dico, dicere, dixi, dictus. Duco, ducere, duxi, ductus. Dormio. Facio, facere, feci, factus. Figo, figere, fixi, fixus. Finio, fugio, fugere, fugi, fugitus. Imperio, invenio, invenere, inveni, inventus. Iacio, iacere, ieci, iactus. Iungo, iungere, iunxi, iunctus. Munio, nescio. Rego, regere, rexi, rectus. Scio, sentio, sentire, sensi, sensus. Struo, struere, struxi, structus. Traho, trahere, traxi, tractus. Huejo, huejere, huexi, huectus. Venio, venire, vene, vintus. Vinco, vincere, vici, victus. Vivo, vivere, vixi, victus. So just kind of looking back over those, you guys should know most of those words. You should have memorized them already. If you're like, oh man, I don't remember them, That's okay. I would recommend going back and playing some of the bookets for second form Latin to remind yourself of those. But pay attention to the fact that they are organized in these four principal parts. Just remembering, like, these are the same word, they share a root, but they're going to have a different ending depending on the function that they are playing. Now, of course, there are a lot of endings depending on the tense or the number, or depending on the system that they're part of. But also the principal parts are showing more than just a tense. Like you have, capio, I take, but capere is to take. And so like kepi is like took, and captus is like I have taken, or have taken. And so you want to make sure that you pay attention for that, like the way it goes all the way down, paying attention to that form, or at least just being familiar with it, so that when you read it, when you come across those words, you can recognize them and sort of jump to the front of the line in your translation. This is something that you're going to want to drill yourself on, just making sure that you are comfortable using the four principal parts, just reminding yourself of that. And then let's look at some of these first and second form question words. These are ones that you've already seen before, but they are words that do present a question. Quis, meaning who. Quid, meaning what. Quando, meaning when. Ubi, meaning where, in what place. The enclitic ne. Enclitic means it's a term that's added on as an ending. And the way to help yourself remember that, it's just like the word enclitic. It's almost like end clitic, right? So enclitic. And the reason why we have those is because in the language before Latin, Proto-Indo-European, they added these enclitics on to the endings. This was just a function of the language that we have sort of given a name to today. They didn't necessarily have a name for it then. But the idea is that you're adding on to the word or the stem. And there are different enclitics as well, more than just ne, but this is the one we're learning right now. We have cur, meaning why. Quot, meaning how many. Quandio, how long. Quomodo, meaning how or in what manner. And so that's our review in the worksheets today. I know you guys probably feel like you could have maybe just read over that, but I think taking our time and going through it, I hope that you had a chance to say a lot of those things along with me, even if just in your head. But just you look back over the meanings, practice the meanings, and then using the four principal parts, using the distinctions between the ablative of means and the ablative of agent, those things, and then also paying attention to the different endings, in like are, ere, ire, that'll help you in your review as well. So we're kind of nearing the end on review stuff, but those also are a couple of new things to learn. So, all right, guys, thank you for your attention today. You have some worksheets that you can be practicing on, and I hope that you find them helpful.